Hi everyone, I'm Rita Lavon and welcome to my channel at Love Build Share. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and if you are not already a subscriber, I ask that you click on that red box in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Today's video is going to be a heart to heart. I always get excited when I say that because these videos mean so much to me. I am speaking about things that are near and dear to my heart and that I want to get out into the world. So with that being said, today's topic is going to be about the pandemic. And I've written some things down. So if you see me look down, I'm looking at my pad here. I guess I could, start by saying, the pandemic, as we all know it, began in March of 2020, which, goodness, here we are, a little over 3 years. It's like, wow, it's been a long time. Even though it doesn't really feel like it, but technically it has been. I know the CDC came out I don't know, like a month or so ago or something and said that the pandemic was over. But of course we all know that, COVID-19 is still very real. But when I first think about the pandemic, the first thing that comes to my mind is social injustice. I don't want to spend too much time on that topic because we could go down a very long road that I don't want to go down because I'm happy. So, I think about Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, and actually, because he was actually killed on May 25th, 2020. So that was just a few days ago. So those three names in particular, of course, we all know social injustice didn't start with them. Black people, as we know it, we have been going through since slavery. So those three names are just very monumental when I think about the pandemic and how I feel like those three names and their murders changed some of the minds of people who didn't believe in racism before, or maybe had never seen it on such a I don't know the word, but just people who may have not believed before. It made it, brought it to the light more, I guess I could say. But like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on that because I'm happy and I'm not trying to get sad. Okay. So I could also talk about what it meant for people who worked in like corporate settings. So, people were able to work from home. So that was a amazing time for people who were able to do that. I know for some people it was like working from home. Wow, how is this going to work? So maybe for those who had children and your children were having to go to school from home, for a lot of kids that had never done it before, it was something very new. I remember parents trying to buy desks for their kids to do their schooling, and Office Max and Staples and all these stores, being completely wiped out of desks and, chairs. And oh man, I just remember it being a really interesting time because it was a shift for all of us. There were people, prior to the pandemic that of course worked from home or went to an online school, for children. But for the vast majority of people, it was like, okay, this is a new normal. How do I do this? How do we figure this out? You got your whole family in the house and it's like, we spending a lot of time together. I'm sure a lot of people, this was the first time they had spent all day, every day with their, husband, wife, kids. It's like, wait a minute now, this is a little much. It was just so interesting. I remember everything being shut down. We had curfews, child, grown folks with curfews. Like, wait a minute, what you mean I can't leave from this time to this time unless I'm going to work, huh? So it was just, that was crazy. Just like, we for real was on curfew, y'all. Like, we for real couldn't go places after a certain time unless we was going to work. Like, how you gonna tell us what to do? But that was the world that we were living in at the time. It was just so crazy just to really think like, we for real lived through that. Like, the stories that we are going to be able to tell people years and years from now about the pandemic, it's like, that happened? Like, and it's almost as if like the world before the pandemic, like you remember it, but it just seemed like, before this, we didn't have that, or we did have this, there became this respect for people who worked in like the service community. So when you think of like, people who worked in like grocery stores, or like just in general, people who worked in any type of like retail or fast food, anything of that sort. When you think about, the grocery stores running out of toilet paper, like I remember that, and paper towels, and like people were hoarding stuff, like it was crazy. Like, we gained this respect for people who prior to the pandemic probably were, some of the most disrespected people, because they made such a small amount of money. People who made like minimum wage, or people who worked in like the restaurant industry where they were, hostess or waitress or waiter or something of that sort, getting paid, hardly nothing, living off of tips. And then you could talk about, because of the pandemic and people not being able to go to places, some restaurants had to close down. So when they closed down, then I remember the amount that people were getting for unemployment. Like people were getting the maximum for unemployment for the state, and then the government was giving, I feel like it was like 600, I think it was like an extra 600, I think, on top of like the maximum for unemployment. So when you think about people who worked in these industries where they got paid such a little amount of money, and then they got, let go because of the pandemic, and, customers not being able to come to their restaurants, they were making more money on unemployment than they were making before, when they were actually, working every day. So that was a really interesting time. It was just so much that went on. We gained a new appreciation, I feel like, for teachers, gained a new appreciation for a lot of things that we took for granted before. People weren't able to see their family members, those who, passed away from COVID-19, not being able to give their families a proper burial at the time. Just imagine, not being able to have a funeral for your loved one. That is devastating. People in nursing homes not having anybody to come and visit them because nobody can come inside. I mean, just to sit here and like really talk this out is like, wow, like we as people really went through a lot. Like that was a lot to truly manage through, because we had never experienced it before, and having to adjust so quickly is like, wow, like no wonder, folks are going through, because think about everything that went on during that time, some good and some bad. I know that, a lot of people were able to save money during that time, because, especially for those who may have a commute to work, not having that commute, being able to, save that money, and you're not going out to eat every day, and, being able to save money on that front. But then on the flip side of that, you're sitting at home eating all day. So, I know some people put on some pounds, pandemic pounds, as they said it. There's just so much, as I sit here, it's just like, wow, look how far we've come from that. We could also talk about how, like at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were refinancing their homes because interest rates were so low, versus now when you think about the housing market just being ridiculous. When it comes to the housing market now, the only people really buying houses are investors, because they can afford to, purchase homes, straight out, versus an average everyday person. And just with inflation now, it's like during the pandemic, there was like some price gouging, going on, because, people had to have certain things, people, didn't have a choice, versus now with inflation and everything going up. And it's just like, wow, what a difference things have made. You know, it's amazing how you're in one year and, you know, prices are at a certain point and you're saving money and, you know, you're looking at life different and you're enjoying yourself. And then, you know, here we are 3 years later and everything is through the roof. I remember like a few months ago, you know, the price of eggs were just extremely expensive, you know, just thinking and just, it's just so interesting how it truly is an up and down, you know, as life is. It's like at one point you're just doing so great and the next moment is like, okay, how are we going down? We were just up. But it really just goes to show, you know, how life goes. I truly believe that the pandemic and just the year 2020 in general, I think that there is a different meaning to it, something that is, you know, beyond me and bigger than me that I am not able to describe or truly even understand. Like, I don't know what to call it, but, you know, it's kind of like how they say 2020 vision, you know, that's perfect vision. And I really feel like that's what the year 2020 gave us. I almost feel as if that, you know, that year was like the shift, which I really think that it is. That year gave us a different viewpoint on certain industries and areas, and that we need to look at all the differences that we have and learn to love people and to truly treat our neighbor how we want to be treated. Because the year 2020 just brought to light so many different things. You know, if we were all to sit down and to just, you know, write down some bullet points of the things that changed in our life in 2020, and we get together and just have a big old conversation about it, I mean, the list would just be ongoing. It would be endless because it changed so much. I mean, it's just so interesting. Like, you know, to think that we had masks on, like, now I don't even think about masks anymore. Like, and I just wanted to come on for a minute just to kind of remind you of that year 2020 and what it did for this world, and what it meant for this world and how it has changed this world. You know, it's kind of like how George Floyd, I believe it was his daughter, you know, she said, my daddy changed the world, and her daddy did change the world. You know, social injustice is real. Racism is real. The disparities in this country of black people is real, and the things that we go through. We're not just around here making up stories, trying to be little Mr. and Miss, oh, hear my story. We're trying to share things so that people understand what we go through, what we've been going through, and why it is still happening and how it truly needs to change. So I just wanted to share that with you all. 2020 was the year of years, okay? It is a year that none of us will forget. I feel like we're going to be talking about this for a long time to come. And I'm sure that your world has changed as mine. And, you know, things are what they are. They happen for a reason. It is bigger than all of us. And it is so hard to explain exactly what it means and why. But I think that the year 2020 helped to make the world a better place in some sense, because when you bring light to certain issues, it starts the conversation and it brings better tools and resources and ways to truly handle things. So there's so many ways that I could take this conversation, but I think I've said enough for now. And while you were here and before you go, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Those links are in the description box. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.